30% of those people were saying that they would no longer eat illegal bushmeat, which is obviously partly due to the damage to the environment, but also the risk of zoonotic disease. And what was particularly exciting to me was 97% of people under 18 remembered the campaign. So those are very good numbers, and I think it's great credit to yourselves and the whole Nigerian media and the government to actually be able to raise awareness to that extent.
Okay, so last week, I think it was just on Wednesday or Thursday, the Nigerian government through NESRIA, the National Environmental Response Standard Agency, including some partners like the Wild Africa Fund, crushed or pulverized.
Well, this isn't something you can sell. This is ivory that's been taken. It's illegal. There is no legal market in the world now for ivory. So this is not something you can just take and sell. You have to either store it forever or you destroy it. And I think what the government was doing was using this as an opportunity to raise public awareness more about the seriousness of this, and to say to people, you can't traffic in ivory, and if you do, we'll take it very seriously and we'll prosecute you. So this is the first time it's been done in Nigeria, and it's a very positive step from the government to indicate they're stepping up the fight against wildlife crime.
Okay, so let's look at what the international treaty, that's the CITES now, said about this. When there's illegal trafficked, properties, ivory tusks, elephant tusks, and all that are seized. Do they have to be crushed? You said you either keep it forever or you crush it.
Yeah, I mean, CITES does encourage people to dispose of the illegal product, not to sell them. You can't sell it back because that would be illegal. That would be the government acting illegally. But if you keep it, you have to guard it. It could be stolen. It's costs involved for the country. So I think what they were doing with the pulverization is not just obviously removing those costs, but also sending a message to the public to raise awareness about this and say to people, please don't do this in the future.
Okay, back to Wild Africa Fund. Recently you launched a new wildlife focused TV series, which you said is for kids.
Yes.
Okay. Can you speak about this?
Yes, Dr. Mark's Animal Show. It's really the first of its kind. Dr. Mark rescues animals from the bushmeat markets, illegally taken animals, and he re-releases them to the wild. And what we've been doing is using those animals that have come into captivity while they're in captivity to help educate children about what's going on. And so we do it with local children, and they ask, very often they have quite a bit of knowledge to begin with, which is great, but then they ask questions about, what does this animal eat, where does it live, what's the threats to it, how can we help? So it's very educational and hopefully entertaining at the same time. And we use filming here, but also we film sometimes where the animals live and things like that. So it's an educational show for kids, hopefully a bit of fun to learn and have fun at the same time.
Okay, so preserving wildlife and keeping them in the wild, really, to many people, if you don't eat this bushmeat, what alternatives are left for you?
Well, I mean, there's, in the cities, which is where our campaigns are focusing, there are obviously the alternatives of regular meat. The chicken has been seen as one of the alternatives. One of the projects we've been involved in is actually providing some chickens to the hunters and then also the sellers so that they can rear free-range organic chicken instead of bushmeat. And the thing about the bushmeat is that it's when the illegal trade, the animals are disappearing. So the reason it's illegal is because it's not sustainable. And so this is not something which can go on for very long. There is also the risk of zoonotic disease introduction, as we've seen, and that seems to be rearing its head more and more occasions. There's been anthrax outbreak recently. There's all kinds of diseases which come. Ebola is from the zoonotic disease. So it's not really an option to keep doing that from the wild. It will end pretty soon, or we can switch to something else. And obviously there's other sources of protein, be it fish or chicken, which are healthier and more sustainable.
Okay, I'll let it go now, but not before asking you your visit to Nigeria. What do Nigerians expect to get from that, particularly from the engagement that you were scheduled to have?
Well, we're hoping to talk to the government about a piece of legislation. Under the last administration, there was a law introduced that had its first reading, which was designed by the government, which would really bring Nigerian laws up to date. They're 20 or 30 years old. They're not really up to date anymore. Wildlife crime is very often cross-border, and you need the ability to sometimes pursue people across borders, because some of what's going on is people are coming into Nigeria and using it as a trafficking point. So there's a great new law which was introduced by the government, but because of the election, it got held up. So we're really hopeful they're going to reintroduce that and push that through now. And then that would put Nigeria from, let's say, in the relegation zone right up to going for Europe, if I can use a football analogy. That would put Nigeria as a regional leader. So we're hoping to talk to some legislators about that legislation, and hopefully that's something that can go through fairly soon. And then Nigeria can be a regional leader in this.
All right. Up next is our feedback segment for your views and comments regarding the program. Don't forget to hook up with us on all our social media platforms displaying on your screen. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. After that, we'll bring your environment quotes for this week. All right, this is how we'll be wrapping up Environment Today for this week. Thank you so much for being a part of it. We'll be here with you next week with a fresh package. Until then, please be good. Nkoli Omodo remains my name. Bye for now.